Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Magic Exists podcast with Dani Margeaux, the books that proved it. Anyone who is on a spiritual awakening or personal development journey, moving from the 3D into the 5D energy. You know, books are just my life and have brought so much wisdom into my reality and helped me change my life. And so today we are reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian L. Weiss. And I have an amazing guest here, Amanda Blau. We actually got trained together in Alyssa Nobriga's ICM, what is it? International Coaching Institute? Sorry.
ICM, Institute of Coaching Mastery.
Yes.
It's been a few years.
So welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to tell my story about this book because this book changed my life.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And so I'll just give you a quick synopsis. If anyone who hasn't read it, it's a true story of a predominant psychiatrist. And I think he studied like at Yale and like Harvard and like these really big schools. And he had this client that came in for just like a normal, psychotherapy session or a psychiatrist session. And typically his like fallback would be like medicating people to help support the symptoms and phobias. And he also had been trained, I guess, in hypnosis. I'm not sure if psychiatrists that's like a normal thing, but he began seeing past lives. She began regressing into past lives from like hundreds of years before. And that is actually what cured her phobias and fears and transformed into this person who found peace in their life, harmony, love, and all the things. And so this is from the point of view of like a doctor, a scientist who was trying to move through all of the like unscientific things that he was finding about himself being psychic, his client becoming psychic, and just all of these connections that were like making like that were valid and powerful and magical. And so this is the story of that. It's so good. Highly recommend it. I finished reading it 5 minutes ago for the second time. And you can get through it. I think I read it like in 4 or 5 hours. So like you can definitely get through it. But yes, Amanda, share what you thought about it. And I know you recommend this book to like everyone. And I think that's something I'm going to be doing. It's like top 5 spiritual books.
Yeah, I mean, this book found me at the right time. And it's so interesting how that happens where you're just like going about your life and something comes in and just changes everything. So I grew up in a Jewish household, but I never resonated with religious concepts. And I just denounced religion altogether and called myself an atheist. And I was an atheist for a very long time. And so science and research and proven methods were really important to me. If science couldn't prove it, I just didn't believe in it. I didn't. And that's how I spent the first 34 years of my life. Actually, it was, about 33 years of my life. And I was driving in my car one day, minding my own business, and I was listening to this podcast, and it wasn't a spiritual podcast. It was like an entertainment podcast, and they were just kind of shooting the shit, talking about nothing. And I was like barely paying attention to what they were saying until one of the podcasters in an offhand throwaway comment was just like, I believe in reincarnation because of the book, Many Lives, Many Masters. Anyway, and then just like carried on with the conversation and just moved on. And it like something hit me. It was like one of those moments where you just, I get emotional thinking about it. It's like this deeper inner part of me was like, you need to read that. And I think a part of it was that this person that made that comment is not a spiritual person. And so it was really, it caught me off guard that she would believe in something that was not scientific.
Who was it?
You wouldn't know her. It was honestly a reality TV contestant. And I'm going to give away a big part of my nerdy life, but I'm a big Survivor fan. And so she was on the TV show Survivor, and I was listening to her podcast, and she just like mentioned this and moved on. So it was like very strange to come out of her mouth. And I had Audible on my phone, and I couldn't wait till I got home. I had to look this up immediately before I forgot. And it was the first thing that came up. I typed many, and it came up. It was the first book that came up, and I downloaded it, and I probably listened to it in 2 days, and I've never been the same.
Your life changed.
My life changed.
Yeah.
And growing up, reincarnation was something that felt right to me. There's something about it that was just like, this feels right, or this feels comfortable, this feels good. But I didn't allow myself to believe in it because the science part of me said, well, you just want to believe in it because it feels good. And believing that we die and that's it, your brain shuts off and everything's over is much scarier. And so you're just believing in the fantasy. And I didn't allow myself to until that moment. And
Yeah.
that just kind of started it all.
I love that story because now that you're saying that, I am reflecting, and my mom was Catholic and my dad wasn't. He wasn't any religion. And I remember because he wouldn't go to church with us because I was raised Catholic, I'd always come home and like, do you believe in God? Like, what are you, Pops? And he's like, well, I'm spiritual. I believe in God, but I have my own practice. I was like, oh, okay. So that's okay that like you don't go to church. He's like, yeah, because I have my own practice. So it was very interesting. I would always like be curious, but he would say like he believed in reincarnation and these things. And so now obviously I know these were like little seeds planted in my mind where I'm like, I like what Pops believes in. Like I don't really like what Mom believes in. It doesn't feel good to me. You know, I always felt so disconnected and like just suppressed in in the Catholicism. And anyone who's listened to this kind of knows my experience about that. But it, like my dad's was like very freeing. And what's really cool about this book is, and I'll just say this is my favorite part about it, is like when I started channeling for the first time, what I would channel wasn't like synapses or like ways that I would speak like grammatically, right? It was like it was poetic, the things that I would say, and they would just feel so resonant. And like, you know, I would start crying when I would read back these things that I wrote in my journal that I was channeling from the Akashic Records. And so there's like Catherine is the girl who is clearing all the phobias and fears in her life, and so the whole book is about her experience being regressed hypnotically or hypnosisly. And and so she'll share experiences of her past life, but then these masters come in. And so they're like masters that share like universal wisdom of how the world works. And it's interesting because Dr. Brian Weiss would start to say like, "Oh, I know it's this master because he's poetic like this, and I know it's this master." And it's interesting because the way they speak is the way I channel. And so like for me, it was very validating of just like there is this living field of consciousness that we are all tapping into and we all have access to. And this person who wrote this book, I think it's been 45 years since he like wrote this book. Like I now am tapping into this like collective consciousness that is so loving and peaceful. So for me, it was very validating of like having that science brain, but also like, wow, so there's freaking magic out there in the world. And I am just tapping into like a piece of that.
That is a very interesting takeaway that the voice of the masters sounded different. And if you haven't read the book, this girl, Catherine, is regressed into past lives, but then she starts remembering lives between lives, which is where it gets really interesting. And that blew me away the first time I read it. But going back to this takeaway that you had, that their voices sounded different. What appealed to me about this book when I first read it, or what legitimized it for me rather, was that he was in the science realm and then had his belief systems completely switched. And I think was more drawn to the book because of that I could trust him because he was a doctor and he specialized in psychiatry and looking at things from like a logical, critical eye. And when I started to be able to channel or do it more consciously, rather, the voice was different. And the way it expressed itself was different. And the ideas were different. And it was things that I hadn't considered before. And how could that be me, my conscious self, if it didn't sound like me, didn't feel like me, and didn't think like me? And so that really allowed me to begin to believe, because I am saying that this book changed my life, but it was a slow, gradual process of releasing all of my conditioning. And it took me a really long time to surrender and say, okay, this is 100% real. It did. And I was channeling and I was still doubting as I was channeling, like, what am I really doing here? And that was something that really stood out to me too, was this idea popped into my head, but I'd never thought about it before. And I'd never had that awareness and perspective before. So how could it possibly be me?
Yeah, and he talks about, like, he has this afterword, I'm not sure if you read it, in the back, and it's like 4 years after this whole experience, and he shares how his life has completely changed, and it's embodied now in this, like, way of peace and joy, and, kinda like what you said, it's like it takes time to kind of, like, integrate this, and I've witnessed you channeling. I've attended, like, I think one of your, like, channeling, and you did used to trans channel, and I'm curious about this too, if you still do this and your belief around trans channeling, but I remember it was this, like, Atlantean being, I forget who it was, and it's like, I think I was just feeling or wanting to feel seen in my gifts, right? I think I was in that process of believing. And I remember like the things you channeled, I wrote them down, but they were just like, you need to trust yourself. And it was just like so beautiful and poetic. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And so I'm curious, like, if you still trans channel and if that's something you still like, not believe in, but like believe that as humans to take on a role energetically within our body is still like good and safe versus just like being us as a multidimensional being and tapping into the wisdom in the living field.
Okay, this is a really big you just like threw that question out there, but that is like a there's so many ways I could answer this. Okay, for starters, I don't trans channel right now. And the reason why is because a lot of my belief systems actually have changed since I first found this book. And it was so interesting doing a reread of it because there's a lot in there that I no longer resonate with.
Ooh, like what?
Yeah, like some of the things, like some of the nuance of what the masters were implying. For example, there was one thing that they said about how only God can punish. And I thought that that was an interesting thing to say because I don't fully believe that that's true. I don't believe that punishment is something that comes from a higher consciousness. It is
Mm.
our own projection of where we feel that punishment is warranted. So, although this book still holds a special place in my heart, it was fascinating to see how far I have come since I first found it. And if this book came into my life now, I might not feel the same way about it, but it found me at the right time when I needed to hear those things. And coming back to your trance channeling comment, a part of me has felt a pull to do some trance channeling recently, but just for myself. I have found that I was getting lost in the experience where it was amplifying my own self doubt with my own voice, where I could just trans channel another consciousness. But what about my thoughts and my opinions and my perspective, which are just as valid?
Oh, I love that.
So I have a little bit of an interesting relationship with channeling for that reason. I've noticed this dependency on what lies outside of us as being the higher perspective or um, the perspective that is more trustworthy or that has all of the truth to it, that our voices get diminished in the process. And I prefer to amplify my own and those of my clients rather than the beings of light that they perceive to be higher than themselves or more advanced than themselves. So that's just kind of where I've come to at this point. And it's
I
been an
love it.
evolution. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, I'm gonna say 3 things. First is, like, I feel like this is one of the topics that so I hired Amanda to coach me through my progression of everyone knows, like, the marriage, moving, selling my condo, and I feel like this was one of those topics of, like, the embodiment of me and my thoughts, behaviors, wisdom within me, and not always having to, like, depend on, my guides for that support, like, I am the ultimate highest being, right? And I love there's a connection between this book and a theme of it, which I'm gonna share right now, and Brida by Paulo Coelho, which is the author of The Alchemist, which we just, read last week or last month. And both of them have this concept that our soul has the knowledge, but it needs the experience in order to gain the wisdom. And we reincarnate in order to access that wisdom, gain that wisdom. But it is through behavioral actions that's the catalyst, right? The experience is necessary in order to gain the wisdom. You can't just like read all these things and then like, okay, I got it. And so I really love that like as we continue to integrate our experiences and decide and choose who we want to be, right? Amplify ourselves, our gifts into the space of hopefully the goal, right? More peaceful way of living, peaceful behaviors, harmonious way of living, and what feels good to you. It feels like that is a predominant spiritual part of the evolution of like our soul.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of having this human experience is to have a different kind of experience and one that allows for the separation from oneness, which creates a much more an experience that is very like one-sided, where this is me and this is what I'm going through. And if we were still connected in a more conscious or bigger capacity to something greater than us, it's not that that experience is better or worse, it's just different. And there's nuance in each experience. And so the wisdom we're accumulating from this experience is just as valid as the wisdom we would be accumulating from a higher consciousness perspective, you could call it. And so I think this spiritual language sometimes takes us out of our humanity a little bit and diminishes that experience. And I just like to bring it back, which, we're here to really make the most of it. And so that's where I'm focusing my time and attention right now. Um, but coming back to this book, what stands out to me about what Brian Weiss went through specifically, and I resonated with this so much from the science perspective, is that when you believe that you're just here once and that your existence was just one in a trillionth and it's just luck and you just became a being and you live this one life and then you die and it's over, the existential crisis attached to that is so overpowering. You live in this place of constant fear and also pressure to make the most of it, pressure to get things done quickly and done well and always to the best of your ability, always trying to chase the next thing and outdo yourself. And it's not only scary, but exhausting. And I lived like that for decades. And what spirituality offered me was relief. It was peace that I couldn't access from a different perspective. And that honestly has been the greatest gift. It's not the channeling, it's not the energy component to it. It's literally being able to just exhale and just be, knowing that it's not going to be over at the end of my life. My consciousness is going to continue, and so I don't have to do all the things while I'm here. I can just enjoy myself.
Yeah, he shares like his kind of loop from the exploration, the searching to like the full embodiment of just his
Yes.
humanity. And he mentions that like the biggest fear people have is the fear of death. And once people tap into anything spiritually, open their minds or hearts to the concepts of past lives, reincarnation, the fear dissipates. And with that comes that peace. And he shares like very strongly about how he had a lot of fear around sharing these experiences as a scientist, as a doctor with other people. But once he began sharing, most of the people had these experiences where they would have, clients suddenly start speaking in a different language that they never knew before, or people would be in a different city that they've never been before in this lifetime and then just know exactly where to turn on as if they knew the map in their minds. Or they would have dreams that would be prophetic. And so, like, I think the more we talk about this in just from like a human lens that these are gifts that we have access to. And it's, I know I say gifts, but now that I just say that, they're like, it's not a gift, it's just natural. It's the choice. And kind of like how he talks about we're all diamonds. And some people don't have all the diamond, it's like kind of covered up in dirt. And through our life, we're trying to like clear that away, clear the conditioning, clearing the limiting beliefs, clearing away the hatred for ourselves, the discontent, the rejection, all of that, and then move into, right? What is the diamond? The acceptance of all of you, forgiveness, kindness, and compassion. And he says it, he like repeats it over and over again that like this was a process, and he would fight with himself in his mind, this logic for this versus psychic energy, this like these gifts, this openness. But he realized like in these small moments, he was on his way to like a Dodger game or something. I don't think it was Dodgers because he's in the East Coast, but a baseball game with his son. And he used to get so mad in traffic. But then through this experience of just understanding there is, he doesn't have a fear of death and just life is okay just to be lived. And it's just, how about just living? He decided to not be mad. And he just like had conversations with his son and developed a deeper relationship with his son. And so it's like in those small moments, that is how you embody spirituality and have like a more open and peaceful life.
It gives you permission to slow down. Like there's no longer a rush to get through anything because the point of life isn't to excel at it, it's to experience it. And that was a huge paradigm shift for me because all of my self-worth was tied up in accomplishment my whole life. And I
Same.
always felt like such a failure because I never felt like I was living up to these expectations I was putting on myself, essentially. And all of a sudden, it just didn't matter anymore. And I saw those failures completely differently. I saw them as this inner child trying to find love for herself. And it allowed me to feel so much more compassion for me, where at my old self was operating from a different system that required that she be hard on herself. And now my operating system looks and feels different. And the giant exhale that provides is like astonishing. And yeah, I take more time building connection with people. It's not about what can this friendship provide me or what is the next like get together or outing that we can go on so I can have a good time. It's how can I be present with this person and get to know them better because I enjoy the experience of connection. So I get it. I totally get it.
It's so magical. And we could talk about that just forever. I love it. But Amanda and I were just talking right before we got on. It's like we have all these notes in our books, and then it's like, in the podcast, you're like, oh, like, how do I look back? So I'm just going to divinely open my book and read a passage that I thought was important. The light after death and the life after death are choosing when we are born and when we will die. The sure and unerring guidance of the masters, lifetimes measured in lessons learned and tasks fulfilled, not in years. Charity, hope, faith, and love, doing without expectations of return. This knowledge was for me. So, okay, so I I wrote on the side, this is the summary of purpose: to share your wisdom and the knowledge with the world and bringing joy to being a master within that space. And the transformation that happens, like when you truly do connect to the deepest part of you, the God within you. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, that's a very profound passage. And again, I think that speaks to what you just said, purpose, and how the purpose shifts from the self to more of like a unity collective purpose. And it's not so much what can I do for me to better my life and my insecurities that I am trying to do away with, but how can I be inside of who I am and uplift the people around me so that they have the drive and the desire to do the same. And it's more about connection and less about like the ego's need.
the
Yeah. I think that's
presence,
like the
yeah.
difference between like the 3D and the 5D perspective, like shifting
Mhm.
that. And ultimately like allow for another, like a different type of experience.
Yeah, when I released my expectations, I realized, like, as you grow, as I grew, like, the expectations I'll just give you an example, like, in my 20s, my expectations would I would go to a party and I would, like, drink a lot of alcohol, and I would expect to just have so much fun. I need to have fun because somehow my daily life was not fun enough. And I realized that, like, that's not like, so in my 30s, I don't go to, like, have all these drinks to have fun. It's like, I'm not looking to escape my life, I'm looking to enrich it, and so what is this moment? What is this perfect purpose? What is this intention of, like, why am I going out or having dinner with friends or XYZ, right? And it's like, oh, it's just to be here. Because if I place the expectations that I had in my 20s onto this moment, like, that doesn't even exist anymore, that expectation, that version of me. Like, my expectations, like what the universe has will provide me is always and often beyond my wildest expectations. So coming into any moment just reflective and intentional has helped me anchor into the presence and just be more joyful in the moment, and ultimately leads me to the fun that I want in the end after, or what I wanted or was searching for.
Totally. So resonate with that. In my 20s, specifically from 19 to 30, so all of my 20s, I didn't understand why I was here. I think a lot of people go through an existential crisis in their 30s and 40s. Mine was when I was 19. It was kind of early. And I remember being like, I don't understand what I'm here for. I don't understand the point of this existence because of the lens through which I was seeing it didn't make sense. Like, if this is my one life, then why am I spending it in a classroom and then in a cubicle and then worrying about my taxes? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. And I didn't understand why nobody else was feeling that existential dread. And when you don't understand who you are and what your purpose is, all you want to do is escape that discomfort, and then you turn to coping mechanisms to do that, or grasping onto any exciting experience that's going to allow you to at least find purpose in that moment. And then spirituality provides a different perspective, a different lens, and you start to feel purposeful just living, like
Just
just
living,
your,
just being.
yeah, exactly. And that really like took away a lot of pain that I was feeling at the time.
I
It allowed
agree.
me to work through that.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. And like every moment, I think I would like have these high moments of like so much joy and fun, but then on the counter of it, it's very sad and I was very like uncomfortable. And so kind of leveling out and being in just the peace or the middle of it. And it's like I don't have to be so high and so low. How about in every moment? There's just peace. And it's interesting because I was talking to my husband about this last week. He's like, "Well, the polarity of peace is chaos." And I was like, "I didn't even like realize that was another side to the coin that was available or was, even there for me." But it's interesting his mind went there, where for me, peace is the middle of like the highs of the joy and the lows of the crashing.
Oh, interesting. See, for me, when I was having the highs of the exciting party, I was never actually happy, because
Mm,
right beneath the surface was this existential dread that I was just trying to suppress for long enough to not burst into tears. So it wasn't really a joyful experience, and I was never actually happy, excited, at ease, even though my friends were distracting me from my pain. It was still really present for me. And I never really experienced peace until I no longer feared my own demise, because that doesn't exist inside of the current paradigm I'm living. And so for me, if I were to look at that spectrum of peace to chaos, I think chaos comes with perspective. It's not necessarily like a black and white thing. I guess it depends on how you see the situation, and it can look chaotic or feel chaotic, or it could look peaceful or easeful depending on how you see it or are experiencing it. But that's a really interesting like differentiation in perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's just like what's so beautiful about these conversations. Like if you're going to take one thing, like just openness to a maybe a different perspective that is available to you. And so if you're looking at the book page 83, so this really resonated with me and it was Catherine in one of her regressions, and she says, like, everything comes from the light. Energy comes from this light. Our soul immediately goes there. It's like a magnetic force that we're attracted to. So I think this was the in between life. She's like, it's wonderful. It's like a power source and it knows how to heal. And just coming from like the perspective of being an energy healer myself, and like having my own personal practice where I bring in the divine light and I clear my chakras in my body, how, like, powerful it is that, like, we can really truly heal ourselves with this light that our souls know about in the in between, but actually embodying that, understanding that, and practicing that for me has been beyond powerful of, like, helping heal myself and just love myself because this energy for me of, like, let's say Reiki, right? When I first became a Reiki practitioner, Reiki master, like, I didn't really understand energy. I was like, "Okay, energy, this is gonna come. It's supposed to bring you peace, calm." Like, I don't know, but I just like you learn to trust, right? And through this like continual practice of like your channels are opening and like you're becoming this like clear vessel for this, universal life force wisdom. And now, everyone knows I'm like a Reiki teacher as well. And it's really this just embodiment practice of these like rituals or practices that make you feel good and more in your body. And the more you understand energy and frequency, the more you understand yourself and just like all of it. And being, an empathetic person and highly sensitive person, this was a really big learning curve for me to understand my own frequency, my own energy, how I share that with the world, how I project that with the world, how I contain that within myself, and all the layers of energy. But this was really validating for me that yes, you can heal yourself. Light is healing, bringing light into your body through your mind, which he talks about. You do this by, energetically through your mind, visualizing, has been one of the most like empowering things I've experienced in the spiritual space.
Speaking of healing, what was interesting to me about Catherine is that she came to Dr. Weiss experiencing phobias and big anxiety and like night terrors. And looking at her from the outside, you would think that there was something that is wrong with her, that there is maybe a diagnosis that hasn't been made yet that needs healing. And what ended up healing her was not medication, was not any kind of intervention other than acceptance of what happened and her ability to let go of it. And so there are so many different types of healing modalities from like Western medicine to Eastern medicine to energy healing to any kind of like plant medicine. And so, from your perspective, as someone that does Reiki and is an energy healer, what are the different types of, I guess, maladies or maybe the most common ones that you see? And what is your methodology on how those people rectify that, or like what is required of them to heal that, or how do you help them heal that?
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So through the practice of a certain modality, the goal is like ultimately to trust yourself, right? Trust that what you are manipulating from thin air or the spirit or guides that are supporting you through this practice is in fact helping heal this person or yourself or however you're using it. And so it's like a system in which you learn about what the energy is actually doing to your energetic body, right? Like opening your channels. And then it's building this trust within yourself and becoming the bridge between the physical and the unphysical world, right? The seen and the unseen world. And through that practice over time, you are able to really understand frequency. So for me, I know Reiki, I teach Reiki, and I also use the violet flame, which is the seventh ray of the prism of God consciousness. It is the violet. prism. It is the highest vibration of the purest form of love, light, forgiveness, and freedom. And then there's also, like, for me, I am or been attuned to within the Akashic Records, this, they call it the third degree of the highest level, third degree of the Akashic energy healing. And so by understanding these modalities or frequencies, you just begin to refine deeper your understanding of, I mean, your fundamental soul frequency and how it differs from these other energies and maybe other people as well. And so I'm not sure if that like answers your question,
Yeah.
but I think it's just supporting overall more refining like who you are as a whole being.
I like to play with the idea that there's nothing actually to heal when you really look at
Mm.
it, other than a shift in perspective. And when we have the perspective that there is a wrongness in us that we have to rectify, and that wrongness is creating self loathing, lack of self worth, shame, resentment, it is that resistance of the self that is creating like an energetic imbalance, like a like it's like our energy is can't express itself for who we truly are, and it creates like a disruption in the frequency. And so perhaps there's nothing to heal other than our belief systems about who we are, which seems to be what happened with Catherine, because there was nothing actually wrong with her. If there was, she would have needed something to fix it. But all that fixed it was coming to terms with who she is and what happened to her. And so I don't know that this is true.
I
It's just
love
an
that.
idea that I've played with. And it's ultimately that is what source consciousness is. When you really think about it, love consciousness is just unconditional allowance. And when we don't unconditionally allow ourselves, that's where disruptions in our frequency come in, creating disease. And so it's coming back to unconditional self acceptance that is, I guess, the healing part of it, because it is unconditionally allowing of every aspect of who we are, allowing for ourselves and our energy to just vibrate as we are. So it's like, I just, something that I've thought of reading this book is that like her assumption was there was something wrong with her. I have to go to this doctor to help me. And he didn't really do anything other than give her space to rectify her own feelings.
Yeah. Like, I love no, I love this. This is that, like, liquid gold because 'cause I've been also playing with this where, like, I have, like, I've had chronic back pain, and so oftentimes when I am carrying too much, this is more of an energetic load, right? Carrying the weight of the world. It will pop up, not chronically anymore, luckily, but still in moments, there is back pain that comes, and it's interesting because 'cause I've been playing with the energy of, like, in the past, I'm like, "Something's wrong with me. This pain is not welcome here. It hurts." And I've shifted the perspective of like, my body is so wise and it's trying to tell me something. Let me, like, I'm excited. I want to hear what my body wants to tell me. Let me open that communication, sit in silence to listen to my body, like my back. And then actually this pain, like that I used to think would hurt. What if I thought it was like good? What if I thought pain was good? And I started sitting with that energy with like headaches and neck pains. And then I was like, it was so weird because when I switched that perspective, I welcomed the pain, and then it ironically went away, and so I love this, like, playing with you're right, like, the healing, like, it's what if it's not you don't need to heal, but just open and see and
Yes,
welcome.
open.
Yeah.
Coming back to something Alyssa Nobriga said that I will never forget is um, judgment is just a lack of awareness, right? When we judge something or someone, it's because we don't know the full story. But the spiritual perspective offers that full story. Whereas, in my past life, in my past self, I used to get injured a lot. I was very active as a dancer, and then I started powerlifting, and I hated my body. I thought that there was something wrong with me. I was just always beating up on myself. And that was my judgment coming from my lack of understanding of what my body was trying to tell me. And when you flip your perspective and you see it as my body is intelligent here and it's trying to tell me something, you have so much more compassion for who you are in your process. And I think that that is also another gift that this book highlights, is that healing can come from a shift in perspective that allows for more compassion. And spirituality is like the vehicle for that, or the doorway in for that, where like more, I guess, I don't know how to articulate it, but other ideas of existence don't offer or provide.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And in the book, he also says he ends up seeing like thousands of clients after Catherine, and one lady had severe back pain and chronically for like 36 years or something. And she goes in and goes into a past life. There's two past lives, and one I think she was a prostitute somewhere and like got stabbed or something in the back, and then I forget the other one. But after reliving those, right, sitting in that, her back pain went away forever. And so, just something to explore for our listeners here of like healing and the discomfort of it, and just like the openness of like what you do believe in and what is possible beyond your current understanding.
Something that you just jogged my memory about, that this book also validated for me when I first read it, is it's not that we just have past lives, it's that the energy carries over, where we have similar experiences or like expressions of self. And that also made sense to me. There's something about it that was like, well, if I'm having this challenge right now in this space and time, it makes a lot of sense that I would be experiencing something similar in a different space and time. I'm just experiencing it slightly differently here than I am there. And when you begin to zoom out a little bit and understand that, well, it's not a past life, it's like a concurrent life.
Yeah, parallel.
That makes sense, that like there's this pain point that you're just being asked to address energetically in some space and time, and then it carries through.
Yeah, that's a really big concept. So glad you brought that up because Catherine, all her past lives, she was like a slave or a prostitute or in deep poverty in most of her lives. And it's further explained that, and this is from one of the masters, it's like your life will continue to get harder and harder and harder until you learn the lesson of whatever you're meant to be learning. More kindness, more compassion, less judgment. I think the topics he talked about were like greed instead of like releasing and allowing or something like that. But it is interesting because then now she was in a joy life, I think, in this current consciousness where she obviously had the phobias for 30 years, but now was living this radiant life. People were attracted to her from across the cafeteria, a cafeteria that she was seemingly invisible in 30 years prior. And so it was just very interesting to I think I don't even maybe understand the concept fully. I don't think I've fully embodied it where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I think this life I'm living is joyful, but I've had lives where it's like I've been tortured. And it's interesting, like, and I'm sure there's been lives where I'm like super rich and unaware, but it's like
Yeah.
kind of daunting, I guess, to think about.
I mean, these are like, it's so difficult to wrap your mind around this stuff. And I, I'm a really curious person, and I don't like not understanding things, but I think that there's stuff that we just cannot understand from our vantage point in this life, because it's just, our brain just can't comprehend it. Just the idea, like even in the book, and I was asking my guides, can you please freaking explain this to me, where if you never die, then you're also never born. Like what? Like how could that be possible if I literally was, though? Like I think on some level I was, but on some level I was not. I don't
Yeah.
know how to
Like the
parse apart.
physical self was born and reborn
Yeah.
again, but not on the soul level.
But I think on some level I will always be Amanda on this planet, from what I understand, because I don't understand it. But I think we feel it, like it's so validating, because I think that there's so many of us that feel way more than we realize. there's layers upon layers that we're just not attuned to the nuance of picking up on. But when when it's brought to your attention that you experience something in a past version of you, you're like, wait, I sort of feel that. Like there's a part of me that makes sense and I understand that. And maybe you're picking up on that energetically in this lifetime because there's a part of you that wants to rectify it. And in the moments or lifetimes where you're truly at peace or truly at ease, it's just not needed. And so there's different desires from lifetime to lifetime or moment to moment as we shift and change and grow and transform. And it's just bringing attention to the contrast between the peace that we really want to feel and the peace that we're very subtly holding at arm's length.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and I did 8 months of past life healings on myself in the Akashic Records, like, during my personal development, spiritual awakening journey, so there's definitely magic in witnessing different aspects of you, different parts of you, different energies, and it's just, like, knowing yourself more, getting to know more of you that's not just singular in this current space and reality.
And isn't it validating? You're like, yes, I would do that.
Yeah,
Or like, that does make sense that I would be in that situation or want that or express myself in that way. And
yeah.
it's like you didn't even realize that that resonated for you until it's brought to your attention and you're like, yeah.
And even moments like I've really been drawn to, like, as a kid, Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, like and also I'm, like, half Chinese Filipino, so, like, it's, like, in my blood, biologically as well, but I've been really into martial arts, and I took karate as a kid. I was, like,
Me
second
too.
degree orange belt.
Me
But
too.
oh, that's so cool. I wish I went to black belt, like, I that would've been cool, but, um wait, I wanna talk more about
Were
this, but
you
yeah.
like a Japanese fighter in a lifetime past?
Well, yes, so okay, so I
We were probably together
totally.
in that lifetime.
But I've always been drawn to this, and in a meditation, this, like, master came to me and, like, knew all these moves, and I was, like, writing them down, like, "How did I don't know these moves." And later I'll read back on it, I'm like, "Wow, these are, like, really intricate, like, hand positions and moves and, like, all these things," and I'm like so obviously, like, even my conscious state I mean, I was in meditation, but is able to access, like, these other parts of me, and that's freaking cool. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I still wanna, like, take some kind of, like, martial arts and continue that on, but
Yeah, it just it creates layers to the experience of life that just makes it more interesting and gives you permission to express yourself in new and fun ways. And that is what I love about what spirituality provides and what this book truly opened my eyes to at a time where I shielded myself from the possibility of magic.
I love that, I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
closing thoughts. I love that. I recommend this book, 10 out of 10 for me.
I'm glad you liked it. I was
Um
like, "What if she hates this book?"
Well, I actually read it on my honeymoon,
Aw.
in November, like, on the plane or whatever, so this was, like, my 2nd time around, but, like
Oh,
you said,
okay.
it's like I forgot all of it, like,
Yeah.
didn't in the moment, I'm, like, crying, like, "Oh my god, this is so good," and then later, I'm like, "Oh, I have no idea what that's about, let me remember," but now I'm like, "Okay, it's ingrained," and having this conversation again now is, like, helping interweave, right, the knowledge within my being and, like, really help integrate it. But are there any last thoughts for you about this book and recommending it to people?
I always fall back to if there's something about it that's just calling you, let the curiousness draw you forward. And if there's something about it that just feels like, I'm not sure if it's for me, listen to that. Like trust where you're feeling guided. We're so conditioned not to trust our feelings, but to trust the information that's provided us through someone else. Trust it. If there's something that speaks to you about giving this book a read, trust it and trust your feelings about it and just let your curiosity open new paths for you and discover all of the newness that you're wanting and desiring and letting your energy bring you. Yeah.
That's purely
That's it.
magical. Lead with curiosity, and
Yes.
I love it so much. So, thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing this beautiful hour with us and all your beautiful wisdom.
That went by so fast.
I know, right? And to all my listeners, just thank you so much for being here. I'm just so honored. This space, and this is something you taught me, Amanda. Like, I don't always have to be healing to be purposeful. Like, this, like, reading books and sharing them makes me feel purposeful and is healing in
It is
some kind of way,
healing.
too, sharing this wisdom. And so, if you are enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, please rate, please leave comments. It would just fill my heart so deeply.
Thank you so much for having me, Dani. This was so fun.
Love you. See you next time.
Bye.